Refreshing conversations is what we have here every morning on Sunrise at Sea, and you are just in time for Our Views Part 2. And this morning we're going to be looking at conflict resolutions in homes. What do children see and learn? And joining me at the center of this conversation are the usual ladies that I'm sure you did see in Our Views Part 1, and I have Sandra and Sarah. Now, before we dive into the conversation, I think that it is very important that we highlight what parental conflict is. And in this regard, this morning, we're actually going to be looking at it as to how it affects children and how parents can actually resolve conflict in homes without necessarily involving children. Well, parental conflict, some level of arguing and conflict between parents, is often normal and part of everyday life. However, there is strong evidence to show how interparental conflict that is frequent, intense, and poorly resolved can have a significant negative impact on children's mental health and long-term life chances. So ladies, let's dive right into this conversation. Do you think that it is ever okay for children to be able to see mommy and daddy have an argument or even have a disagreement?
I don't think it's a question of seeing them fighting or arguing. It's rather a question of how do the parents fight or disagree or argue.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with a child seeing two parents have opposing views or points to something, but how they go about the disagreement. Is it something that comes up and then one parent gets volatile and now cups and plates are flying all over the house? Or is daddy saying this and then mommy saying no, and they're speaking together in a respectful manner? So I don't think there's a problem in parents and children seeing some sort of conflict between the parents. It is how that conflict is handled.
Okay.
Because if you're talking to each other in a respectful manner, say for instance, daddy might say, yes, you can have ice cream before dinner. And then mom is like, no, they cannot because it's going to ruin their appetite. And then daddy is like, but no, they did their chores. Perhaps they deserve a treat. They can do it. She's like, no, but their vegetables and their fish or whatever it is they're going to eat is a lot more healthy, and this pastry or dessert is going to ruin their appetite. And then they're going to wake up in the middle of the night because they're still hungry. So when you have a respectful disagreement like that,
yes,
the children will also start to see how their parents respect each other. And I think respect is very important. Just because you respect someone does not mean you can't disagree with them. So it's important for children to see that their parents can cordially resolve conflict in a civil manner.
Okay.
And I think it's also important to have a conclusion right there.
And
because
then,
if you're going to start and then now one person who storms away,
exactly,
then you're now starting to drift away from the lesson you're trying to teach them.
You definitely do have a point, because for very many parents in homes, when they have altercations or when they're arguing, they start it right there in the middle of their children and then head on to their bedrooms to resolve. It is very important. I mean, when you head on to your bedrooms, I mean, they have conversations and talk about these things. But I think it is very important, because I saw that look Sandra was giving me.
Yes.
I think it is very important that you actually resolve the conflict there. And then so our children are able to know that mommy and daddy can fight, but it doesn't mean they do not love each other anymore. They have come to a consensus. However, I would like to hear from you, Sandra. What do you think?
I think it is good for them to actually see parents disagree, but of course not in volatile manner, because conflict is everywhere.
Yes.
And learning conflict resolution is a very, very important skill to have in any field, in your relationship, at the workplace, everywhere. And if you never learned that at home, then you're going to be put in very uncomfortable situations.
Yes.
And not knowing how to resolve conflict can really take a toll on you as a person. I remember a friend of mine told me that, you know, Sandra, growing up, we always thought that marriages were different, that they were so blissful. Now that I'm married, I'm finding it so difficult. And she says, you know what the problem is with this? It's because our parents never showed us that they had conflict. We never knew, we just saw this other side. Now I'm seeing this side in my own marriage, and I'm finding it so difficult. Because guess what? I thought my parents had a blissful marriage, only to realize later that they didn't. My father even has kids out of wedlock, but we never knew that. You see? So learning how to navigate these conflicts in every sphere is quite important.
Well, parents in the US and in America, a study was carried out, and it said 50% of the parents prefer to actually make sure that their children do not see or even get to experience them having conflict, especially when it comes to married couples, both mommy and daddy. They prefer to either have the conflict in the bedroom or to completely not have it while the children are around. And for very many children that have grown up in these kind of homes, like what Sandra has hinted on, they believe that marriage is very blissful, that there is not such a thing as where you have altercations. So don't you think in a way this affects children when they get married finally?
This is the thing. I think it's important to settle some disagreements in front of the children, whereas there are some disagreements that you should not be settling in front of your children. Say disagreements on, say, infidelity, maybe finances. When it comes down to very serious conversations that will probably get one partner or both of them very heated. You get, and it starts to become very emotional. But when it comes down to, say, for instance, how to raise the children and how they should maybe behave. Say maybe one parent is very strict on academics and the other person is a lot, lenient on it, saying that as long as you know how to read and write, for me, I'm good. Well, the other parent is like, you must get A+. Matter of fact, you must get the letter before the A. The A+, you understand? So I think it's some conversations or disagreements can't be settled in front of the children, because when you do that, you're also teaching them how to fight fair, okay? And how to put up, how to put your argument forth with, say, facts to back it.
Not emotion.
Not emotion to back it. For instance, if one parent says academics is very important, nothing comes before that, and the other one is like, no, but your extracurricular activities or your talent or your strengths are way more important. So have that argument and also bring the child in and get their opinion on it, so that you learn how to fight for. The child can see it, but I wouldn't recommend. Matter of fact, if there are any other serious problems like finances, infidelity, or one partner is feeling, neglected or sidelined, perhaps take it completely out of the house.
But again, Sarah, don't you think if we allowed our children see actually the way the parents have altercations and all, aren't we robbing them of just being children and just being oblivious to certain things? But again, looking at the aspect that there are some disagreements you cannot have in front of the children, isn't that again still leading them on, making them to believe that issues of infidelity and financial stress are things that are not as important?
Exactly.
It's none of their business.
No, I beg to differ, Sarah. Let me explain why. You find some people, the woman would say, I would stay for the kids, yet the kids have watched you as they grow be miserable, be bitter. Isn't it better to tell them, look, mommy and daddy, this is not working, so we are going to live separately, we are going to co-parent? That is teaching them how to handle conflict.
Because if we don't talk about these issues, they'll think they do not happen, that mommy and daddy can never get divorced. Mommy and daddy do not have cases of, one partner sleeping around or something like that.
This is the thing.
You just don't
How are you going to tell your children your father or their father is sleeping around or cheating on them? Let us look at the statistics and how divorce actually affects children. It really beats them down. Why I say you should not fight, especially when it comes down to fidelity or things like this, because it is going to weigh harder on your child than it is going to affect you. I'll give an example. When my son was about 3 years old, he was about 3.5 years old, he once saw me and his father fighting. We were having a financial disagreement. He saw and heard us fighting.
Okay.
The next time his father came, we were going to the gate. Do you know what my 3-year-old said? Mommy, today no shouting at daddy. As a parent, your child to tell that to you. Now you know your child is actually thinking about this. For my child to have to call me out on it, that means he comprehended it in his own little mind. And now he's thinking, perhaps mommy hates daddy. And then where does that leave him if mommy hates daddy?
Okay.
So you don't want to have to put your child in a situation when they see these kinds of fights. There are disagreements you can have in front of the kids, but I highly and strongly recommend, do not bring the serious grown-up matters to your children, because it's going to affect them. What if your child starts to get the mentality, my father was a drunk or was a cheat and this was his problem, and because I'm his child, they don't expect any better from me? Do you understand what I mean? It's okay to have the conversation now when they have age and when they start dating. Explain to them and bring it down. Both of you should sit there and have the conversation so that it is not one parent against the other.
Well, I hear you, Sarah, but what I am saying is that if children, this is about conflict resolution, yes? So I'm thinking, even if the children are young, you don't have to tell them the nitty-gritties of what is going on, like the magnitude, yes? You can give them a soft landing and say, you know what, daddy and me, or mommy and I, this is not working out. We can't come to an agreement. We have agreed to disagree. So in light of that, we are going to be parting ways. We're going to be parting ways. You can be staying with mommy a few days and with daddy a few days, so that they get to understand, well, you're having this conflict, but you are navigating through this conflict in a very amicable manner.
I understand that. That is after the fact. And we are talking about after the fact, when the child is now asking questions, why are you separating, why are you divorcing? Not bringing you start shouting or telling your wife or your husband, this is why you're sleeping around. You get? And conversations like that get very, very heated. And you cannot, you put yourself in a situation where you are, fueled with a lot of emotion, and you can't even control the things that you're going to say. You're going to say things that are just going to destroy your children.
You have actually reminded me, there was a home I walked into, and of course, I know this conversation could go on and on, but time is not on our best side. Now, before I return to you, Sandra, and you'll be giving us tips. I know you are a mother of three amazing boys, and you probably let us know how you handle conflict resolution, conflict in your home where children are actually staying. I did walk into a home a couple of months ago, and this little boy, they were arguing with the mom. And the boy told the mom, that is why you did not go to school. Daddy said you did not go to school. And this is a statement that the parents had while they were arguing, and the little boy picked it on. So while we were visiting as visitors, he said, Mommy, that is why you did not go to school. And I'm like, my goodness. But anywho, I'll read this out as we wind up the conversation. Now, which aspects of parental conflict matter? There is no such thing as relationship entirely free from conflict and disagreement. And surely all children see their parents argue one time or another. When parents relate to each other calmly and positively, even during a disagreement, solve the problem together and show children through their subsequent interactions that conflict has been resolved, then the children may be unaffected. And small body of research suggests that they may even learn conflict resolution skills which they can apply to their own relationships down the road from such situations. Finally, I'll end with you, Sandra. Any parting shots that you would like to tell someone watching us this morning on how best they can actually resolve conflict in their homes without necessarily harming the children?
Well, first of all, don't lose your temper. Don't lose your temper, and use logic. Come with facts, and also be willing to meet your spouse halfway. Be willing to compromise. Be willing to have a dialogue, and mind your tone and your body language. Kids really pick up on body language and the tone. So mind that, and be respectful. Be respectful. Remember, you're teaching your kids, through you, you're teaching them how to learn to resolve conflict as adults. Well, yes, that was
well, a word of advice from me to you is that parents, if you're watching this morning, I want you to know that your children are reading your life script without your permission. They do not need your permission to learn and see the kind of things that you're doing. So if you want to raise an amazing child, the best that you can do is actually to be as honest as possible and teach them conflict resolution skills. Otherwise, that winds up what we had for you this morning on Our Views. Stay tuned, because you are still watching Sunrise at Sea.
Thank you for watching Sunrise at Sea this morning. We hope you had a good time. We really did have a good time hanging out with you. Remember, we're on air every Monday to Friday from 7 a.m. all the way to 9 a.m. Well, from the ladies and I here in the studio, Sunrise at Sea, have a lovely day, and we'll see you tomorrow, same time. Have a lovely, lovely day.